Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Pippa. I'm part of the Tigerhall content team. And if any of you joining us are new to Tigerhall, then welcome. We're really glad to have you with us. And please do, everybody, feel free to use the chat function here. Say hi, let us know where you're from. We'd love to know who's here. So just in brief, if anyone is new, a little bit about us. Tigerhall is a mentor media platform where we work with senior business leaders from all around the world to help them be a mentor in a very scalable way. So we help them capture some of their knowledge and insights through podcasts, power reads, and virtual sessions like this. And I'm joined by Dhruv Shanker. Hey, Dhruv. How are you doing?
Pippa, how are you? I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, so Dhruv is currently a senior vice president at Alibaba Group, working with Daraz, the largest e-commerce company in South Asia. It's massive. He's previously been SVP at Lazada and has also held senior roles at Ofo, Groupon, and he worked a lot in Silicon Valley as well. And we're big fans of Dhruv at Tigerhall. He's done, I think, is it 3 podcasts you've done with us now?
Yes, definitely done 3, yeah.
Something like that. So if you haven't heard them, then you go on to the Tigerhall app and check them out. He's brilliant. So we've invited Dhruv to have a quick chat with us today about how to make the most out of both work and life. And we've invited you, Dhruv, because you do this rather well. You have a busy career, your role with Alibaba, but you also have a successful side hustle that you love. You're a chef and a restaurateur, and you have a couple of restaurants in India, and you teach cooking classes here in Singapore virtually at the moment, as well as having a wife and 2 dogs and a busy social life. So there are all these different layers to your life, and you manage to squeeze a lot in, and you make it look easy. So I'm hoping that we can all learn a little bit from you. So how this session is going to work, I've got some questions for Dhruv about this, but please, everyone, this is supposed to be informal. Please use the chat function. Feel free to throw out all your questions, and Dhruv will do his best to answer. Okay, so my first question for you, Dhruv. Work-life balance tends to mean something different to everyone, but we're all really busy. Some people, like yourself, are able to divide time and prioritize well between their jobs and things outside of work. Some people do this better than others. What are these people doing differently?
All right. Yes, great question. And first off, thanks for having me. All right, super excited. I have loved all the time I've spent with Tigerhall doing the podcast and the power reads and all of that. So big fan of Tigerhall myself. So thank you for having me. And you know, it's a topic that's very close to my heart. Okay? Work-life balance is something that I take very seriously, and I think everyone should. Okay, so I'm glad to talk about this. Your question was about how what does this mean for it means different things to different people, and that's absolutely spot on. People sometimes think of work-life balance as okay, what do I do in the office, and then what do I do outside the office? Broadly, yes, that's what we're talking about. But I think work-life balance, right, is more about understanding yourself and really getting a sense of what your priorities are. So it starts with figuring out your priorities. What do you identify with outside of work? We've all got jobs. We've all got to go and work in the office and make money and all of that. We've all got that. But outside of work, what are your priorities? What do you identify with? Is it a charity? Is it a passion project? Is it just spending time with your family? It could be fitness, it could be anything, right? And I think identifying those priorities on a professional level and a personal level, it starts with that. And there's no answer really for that fits everyone, because this is personal and it's different for every single person out there, right? So what's a priority for me may not be a priority for you, and vice versa. So it starts with that, figure out your priorities, and then go from there. That's what I've done. That's what's worked for me as well. And then in your priority list, you chop. You be ruthless with your prioritization of the priority list itself. And then figure out what are the negotiables, what are the non-negotiables. Hey, if I don't manage to do this in life, is it okay? Or what are the things I definitely want to get out of this life? I think those, once you've made that list, you're in a good place. And that's what I've done as well. Different answer for everyone.
So this, so this, how is it for you? This balance that you have between your corporate job with Alibaba and your side hustle, your just personal life, how do you structure your day to fit in all these different elements and feel like you have this amazing balance?
Right. So look, I plan my routine according to my own productivity. Okay. It's a lot of introspection. You got to understand who you are as a person. And honestly, it took me some time to get here. So I figured out my most productive hours. Okay. When can I get the most amount of work done? Obviously made the priority list. Now, what do I want out of work professionally, and what do I want to achieve personally? And then once I've got my list, okay, these are the 10 things I want to do in life, right? And at what point do I manage to squeeze them into a day? What point do I manage to squeeze it into my life, right? That's where the planning comes in. So I've discovered fairly recently that I'm a morning person. So I get up first thing in the morning, roll out of bed, and then I run my cooking class. Actually, I run my cooking class. I prep for my class. I teach a virtual class. I teach people across the world how to cook Indian food. Sounds pretty crazy, but that's what I do. I used to be a chef many years ago, and this is my way of staying in touch with the food industry. So very important that I stay connected. That's one of my personal goals, one of my personal priorities. Is to stay involved with the food industry in some way or the other. So I do that first thing in the morning before the world has even woken up, and I get that out of the way. And I love doing it. So I devote a few hours to that. Family time is also important. I have 2 dogs. They need a walk. I need a walk too. I get out in the morning, get a little bit of exercise, which we all do need. I manage to squeeze that in. And then I spend the morning working on some of my projects, the things that I'm close to, the work, the couple of businesses that I've invested in. They take up my time, and that's when I get work done. Sometimes it might just be writing, but I get work done early in the morning. And by the time it's 10 a.m., 11 a.m., the world's starting to come to work, I'm ready because I've done my other work. I've finished with my personal stuff, and then I can go to work on my corporate job. I do have the luxury of starting a little later because my teams are distributed across, just because from a time zone perspective, my businesses come online. My corporate job starts online a little later in the afternoon, a little later in the day, around 12 or so. But then I work till about 7:30, 8 p.m. But then after that, switch off, and then it's time for the family again. So that's what I do. That's my routine. I've kind of settled into that. I've figured out, like I said, that I'm a morning person. I get work done. I've also become intensely aware of when I need a break. Very important to take a break. Take those breaks. It's just a way to recharge your body, recharge your mind. And that's basically how I plan my routine. I have tools that I use just to keep my time in check. Simple stuff like Google Calendar and whatnot. But yes, that is how I plan my routine. So I do that. Weekends are, again, Saturday is usually used for personal projects and getting stuff done. Do have a social life and, go out and things like that. Sunday, I do nothing. I sit around, I play with my dogs, and and I watch some trashy Netflix. That's basically what I do. Because that's also important. And for me, that is a part of my work life as well, my work-life balance as well. So that's the routine.
Dhruv, are you only able to fit so much in though because you're not expected to properly start your job until midday?
Not
quite an
necessarily.
advantage there.
No, I know that does sound nice, right? But here's the thing, right? I haven't always had that luxury of starting a little late. My previous role at Lazada was in the same time zone, for example, right? But it's a question of then, setting your priorities accordingly. So instead of doing an early morning, I would do a late evening. So it's a question of figuring out, when you can squeeze all of it in, right? So right now, yes, I have the luxury of starting a little later, but I haven't always had that. It also depends on what stage you are in your career, in your life, right? When you're able to move things up and down. So understand, hit that balance. It may not happen immediately, but as long as you've got a goal and you've got a plan to work this into your work life, right? It will happen. It will happen.
Because I'm also thinking this might be easier for you because you're so senior. You can sort of set your own hours to an extent. No,
not at all. Not at all. It's nothing to do with seniority. Like I said, it depends on what stage of life you're in. Look, I honestly believe that the meaning of work life that evolves as you grow older, as you grow in your career as well. And I've always felt that the 20s are when you learn, the 30s are when you burn, and the 40s are when you earn. All right. So that's a mantra I've kind of broadly followed. So when I was in my 20s, I was working a super, super aggressive sales job. I had no time to do anything else, but that was fine because my priorities at that point were very different. Priorities then were different. Priorities now are different. So at that point, for me, work-life balance, was okay. The life, was okay. I was able to, devote a lot more time to work. And I was confident that the life part of it will come a little later. That's all right. And we're all at different phases of the journey, right? See, you got to remember, your career is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? You're in this thing for 40, 45 years. So, it's all right. If a few years here and there, you really have to grind it out, and that the work-life balance takes a bit of a beating, that's okay. Because you got to have a plan to even it out at some point. That's all it is. So when I was in my 20s, when I was like, I used to work a very high pressure sales job. And that was my life. And don't get me wrong, I loved it. Okay. I absolutely loved it. Like I said, priorities were very different. I had a goal. I had to make X amount of money, and I was very happy doing that. But as you grow on, as you grow older, and your stage of life changes, that's that's all it is. So it's not so much about seniority. It's just a question of where you are in life mentally and what your priorities are at that point in time. That makes
Dhruv,
sense?
what should people do?
Mm-hmm.
I could sort of hear what people will be thinking. What should people do if they feel their job doesn't allow for such a balance?
Right. So like I said, right, again, depends on where you are in your life. Like, see, at some point, right, see, your career is, it's a long journey. Focus on the larger picture, so don't sweat it. Like, if you have a few weekends that you need to work, that's all right. We've all been there. On, a larger scale, right, you've got to look at, being in a place that is aligned with what you want out of life. All right. So you don't need to make any drastic changes. Like, there are organizations, and then there are immediate, supervisors and managers and teams that you work with. A lot of this is about expectation setting, right? So, figure out a place where you're happy, that's aligned with what you want out of a work-life balance, and work towards that. And don't worry if it's not going to happen for, the first few years or whatever it is. It's, like I said, we're on a journey, we're on a long path. We work for about 35, 40 years at least, right? So you'll get there at some point. We're always going to have jobs where we're not able to balance it all out, but that's fine. You can always find your spot. You can also always set expectations with teams. There's a lot of ways to achieve that happy place.
Mm-hmm. How can you communicate if you have things outside of work that are important to you, like for you, your side hustle, your chefing?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
How can you communicate that I've got this thing that I need to do between these hours every day? This is really important to me. How can you communicate that to your bosses and have them be okay with it, especially if it's during normal hours?
Okay, so here's the thing. Right now, your core job is the most important thing. Okay, you absolutely have to nail it before you can go start doing all your other stuff. Let's be honest. It is called work-life balance. The work part of it comes first. So it's important that you be amazing at your core job. Okay, be really good at it, and make sure that you're not compromising on any work time to do any of your personal stuff. Okay, so that's the same thing. It should not overlap on the other side as well. So be amazing at your core job and be open with your team, right, about the other things that you do, the other things that are important to you. Okay, if it is volunteering, or if like, hey, even if you've got children and you want to put them down for a nap every day at 2 p.m., right, set that expectation with your teams. And a lot of the time you will see that being open, being frank about these things is a lot better. You don't have to hide things from them. So be amazing at your job. This is the first thing. And the second thing is to set boundaries. If you can't work a certain time zone, it's very difficult for you. Let your teams know. We all work, with teams all over the world, remotely and whatnot. Set those boundaries. Let people know. And I think then it's fine. You may not always be able to find a manager who understands, but it's important to build that communication at least, so that your manager understands what is important to you. Right? If you need to take a break to take care of your kids in the middle of the day, but you're going to make up for it with another 30 minutes at the end of the day, have that discussion. It all comes down to communication. So relate to your team, your manager, and you will be fine.
So yeah, I mean, this is all sort of assuming that you have a manager that will understand. What if you don't have a manager who is, maybe they're quite old-fashioned, a bit traditionally minded? When they were younger, they worked these hours. They only went home here. And they don't understand that you have these other things you want to do.
Got it. So look, if it's a traditional setup, right, and your manager, what does your manager expect of you? Your manager expects you to be great at your job, right, to deliver everything that is expected of you. And if you think about everything that I'm talking about, work-life balance, right, it starts with making sure that those deliverables, right, that whatever you're expected to deliver in the workplace gets done. Now, I think there is something to be said for, like, if you're not able to deliver everything in the set amount of time, then that might be a time to have a chat, have a conversation with your manager. Because I think anyone who's expecting you to work longer than your working hours, right, there has to be a pretty strong reason there. Either there's just too much work, or you're not cut out for the job. Simple as that, right? So I think it might be a staffing problem. If there's that much work expected that people are expected to do overtime every day, then there's something broken in the system. But and if you're not able to get your job done, get your work done in the designated 8 or 9 hours, then that's something to probably introspect. Let's figure out. Then maybe you might have a productivity problem. Maybe there are distractions. That's another problem to solve. How do you get all of your stuff done in 8 or 9 hours of work, right?
Yeah.
Either do you have too much work or are there distractions? Can we optimize that in such a way? But I think the focus is always on, get your work done, be amazing at your core job, and then go and do whatever else you want to do.
I think,
yeah. If I could just give an example, right? There was a phase when I was also learning the ropes, right? When you move into a new role, you always got to learn new stuff. I started out a new job and I had to learn about markets I'd never managed, marketing budgets and things like that And, when you are running large scale marketing, you're responsible for spending millions of dollars in marketing. You better be careful with that money. It's not your money, right? So, that was a time when work took all my focus, right? I'm like, okay, I'm in learning phase right now. All my other stuff can wait. Like I said, it's a long game. It's all right if I don't work on a couple of my other projects, right? Somebody else is going to run the restaurant for a couple of weeks. That's okay. That's okay. Because right now, it is super important that the professional goal is met and met in style, right? You got to do it well. So that is very important.
So I've got a few more questions for you, Dhruv, but just a reminder to everyone watching, please do write in your questions in the chat. I can see we've got a couple that have come in, so I'll get to those in a minute. But yeah, please do, everyone, don't be shy. Please send in your questions. So yeah, just in addition to the manager stuff, Dhruv, I mean, managers are generally waking up to the fact that happiness is incredibly important to how productive and creative people are in their jobs. And that maintaining some sort of work-life balance helps reduce stress and prevents burnout at work. What do you think is the ideal attitude for senior leaders?
Right. I think, look, leading by example, it all starts with that. I've had the good fortune of working, working with some really good managers. Early on in my career, I worked at Google for 4 years, and I met some really remarkable people there. That's a company that's known for people management and just keeping people happy. And I think you realize that much later after you leave, right? It's not about the perks and all of that. It's about how you go about your life. And I think I learned how to do that because I saw some of my managers, leading by example. So, as a manager, I genuinely believe that you should reward behavior that displays good work-life balance, So look, if you have someone on your team who's working every weekend, right, that's not something to reward. That's something to investigate because, hey, why is this person having to work so much? It's not a good sign, right? You encourage people to take breaks. Right? If your manager is also taking holidays and is, maintaining a healthy life outside the office as well, right? I think that goes a very long way in inspiring the team as well to take cognizance of their work-life balance. As a manager, don't try not to send emails on the weekend. That way, when you send an email that says urgent, everyone knows that it is urgent, and it's not just someone who's just working nonstop, right? And look, and last, and this might sound like platitude, but a manager's top priority is always the team's well-being, right? You have to have your people in a happy place from a mental perspective, from a physical perspective. So again, reward people who are able to, pull off excellent work with a good work-life balance. And if you have someone who's working every single weekend, right, try and fix that situation because that's not good either. All right. So that's how I would think about it.
Okay, I'm just going to put you a question that's been sent in by someone. Looking for advice for people who are just at the beginning of their career and have not been able to maybe join offices and meet their colleagues in person.
All right. Look, if you're early on in your career and you haven't been able to meet your colleagues, okay, look, that's a different one. I think that's something we're definitely all struggling with. From a work-life balance perspective, look, I think it's important that you meet your colleagues for work, yes, but then also meet with them outside, right? Have a social connect with your colleagues. I think just at this point, in this climate, yes, it's been hard to do, but to just understand your question a little better, right? You're talking about people who are early on in their career. Can you still have a work-life balance at that stage? I'm going to answer that. I'm going to put that. I'm going to take your question at that. What people early on in their career, right? Like I said, your early stage, you're learning a lot. So perhaps your work-life balance is going to be a little skewed. Not saying that it should not be there. There are going to be some things that are non-negotiable, right? Stuff like your health, stuff like family time, right? All of that counts as work-life balance as well. So don't think about stuff like, do I have to have a passion project? Hey, do I need to be, passionate about this charity that I want to be a part of? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Not everyone's going to have a side passion gig, right? That's all right. But there are things like health. There are things like, and I'm not talking about fitness. No, fitness is when you want to get your six-pack abs. Health is about when you just want to be healthy, right? And you want your body to be able to power up and go to work the next day and just have energy. So that is those are things that you can't say no to, right? So focus on stuff like that, the non-negotiables at that stage, and then you will be fine. And as far as meeting your colleagues, not meeting your colleagues, that's important too. That's important too. So be social. Figure out time to meet meet your fellow coworkers. Go out for a drink, have a cup of coffee. Figure that out for yourself. That is kind of important. Yeah.
One thing I think is sorry. Thank you for your answer. One thing I think is really important to touch on in this conversation is guilt. People frequently, I know that I sometimes do as well, feel guilty taking time for myself. You put your feet up in the evening, the work is done, but then your email goes off. You see a Slack message from a colleague, you think, oh, my colleague is still working. I should log back on. I don't want people to think that I'm, slacking.
Slacking. I see what you did there. All right. Okay. So here's the thing, guys. Okay, with guilt, right? We all go through it. Right? We all go through it. A lot of it happens, also because of the people around you. I think with guilt, the main thing to do is figure out why you're feeling guilty, right? Why are you feeling guilty? Why is it bothering you? The way I look at it, you will only feel guilty if you're not delivering on something that you're expected to do, right? Were you supposed to deliver X number of hours, or were you not hours? Let's talk about goals, right? Deliverables. Are you late on something? Are you behind on something, right? If you're meeting your KPIs, if you are delivering what is expected of you from your job, right? That's all that matters. Okay. And as far as guilt goes, have that conversation with your boss. Okay. It is about, communication. Most of the time it is about communication. No one's going to judge you if you've got your work done, right? And if your boss knows that, look, this is a person who gets their work done by 6:30 p.m. and they're done. After that, their time is theirs and they have other things that are important to them. They've got kids, they've got a life, or, the theater artists, they go and act in in a theater club somewhere, whatever it is, right? If you set that expectation, you have that frank conversation with your manager. There's nothing that can be pointed out in terms of work not being finished or anything like that. You should be all right. And if there's that colleague who's actually pinging you after work hours, set that expectation that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be available after so much time because I'm for yoga class, whatever it is, right? As long as work is getting done. If that colleague is really in an emergency and is stuck with something, absolutely, jump in, because that's what it's about, right? It is the spirit of collaboration. Sure, you can miss yoga one day if it means helping out a colleague who's stuck in a spot, but it doesn't mean that you're going to help them every single day, right? Set expectation. So be flexible. Like I said, it is very important to have those relationships within the organization, within the office as well, and don't sweat it. Once in a while, if you have to forego one of your other projects because work demands it, always prioritize work. It will happen, but don't make a habit of always doing that. Your other priorities are also very important.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty, guys. Offices have nap pods for a reason. Okay. My office has nap rooms too. And then, the first few years, nobody used to use them because people were like, hey, this is weird. Can I take a nap in the middle of the day? Of course you can take a nap in the middle of the day. You're just recharging your batteries, man. You're going to recharge your phone, right? You do that all the time. What's wrong with that? Just taking a little bit of downtime. It is better to take a 30-minute nap than to work 4 hours feeling sleepy, right? Do that. Power down. It's okay. People take coffee breaks and tea breaks. Compress it. Figure it out. Take a 5-minute coffee break if that means that you can take a 15-minute nap later. It's totally okay. It's totally okay. And companies recognize this.
So logical. Of course, that's true. But it's easier said than done, right? You shouldn't feel guilty.
It's very easy to nap. I will lie down and close my eyes. No. See, here's the thing. It's a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. But it's a question of setting those expectations. Have a chat with your boss. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Set the expectations. It all comes down to, just being able to squeeze all of your deliverables, whatever you're expected of, right? What's expected of you. Get that done. And, and there's a whole bunch of productivity gurus out there who can teach you how to block out your distractions or whatever. Figure out, if you've got too much on your plate, that's also a conversation to have with your boss. But if you have the adequate amount of work and you got the same amount of time, let's figure out how to get it done so that you can go and focus on all of the other stuff that's important to you in life as well.
Very nice. Okay, Dhruv, we're coming to the end of our time together. So final question from me. Can we give everyone watching today, can we give them some action items, a bit of self-reflection, maybe 5 or so things to go away and do or think about to have better work-life balance?
Right. I'd love to, but it's actually time for my nap, so I'm going to see you guys later. But no, okay, on a serious note, folks, make that list, okay? Make a list of work and personal priorities, okay? What do you want out of life? Okay, get those personal goals and those professional goals down, write them down. And once you've got those lists, those priorities down, figure out what's negotiable and what is non-negotiable on that, right? When you're looking at yourself 60, 65 years old, right? What are the things you want to have definitely achieved, right? It could be travel, right? It could be, I want to hit X number of countries or whatever, I want to do this. But it's up to you to execute that, all right? So make sure that you've got that list. Some of them will be realistic, some of them may not happen, right? So figure out the ones that you can do. Don't make like a laundry list, 100 things that I want to do. So just prioritize, ruthlessly prioritize that list and be realistic with yourself. What can be done? And once you've got that list, look at that list very often, because that is what is going to be your guide. That's what's going to keep it real every time you forget. Second thing is set expectations and boundaries with everyone you work with. Your coworkers, your yoga studio, my cooking class, the students, whoever come in for it, whatever it is, even if it's with family, right? Train your dogs to go for a walk only at the time when you take your break. That's all right. But it's a question of setting expectations with everybody, okay? And be amazing at your job. I will always say this, be good at your job. If you're finding it hard to be good at your job, if you're finding yourself overworked, overloaded, that's a conversation to have with your boss, with your manager, with your company, whoever it is, right? So it all comes from there. Work happy, get your work done. And then after that, go out and do whatever else you need to do. Third thing, identify your productive hours. Okay. I didn't know for the longest time that I was a morning person. Okay. I became a morning person like 5 years ago, man. I used to always have trouble waking up, but this happened to me pretty recently. And then identify when you can get the most amount of work done. Right. So now I know that like the mornings are on productive hours, whether I'm doing personal stuff or work stuff, that is when I want to front load it. That's when I want to put most of my stuff. If I have to work on a proposal, even if I'm not doing my other job, right? I know that that's when I'm going to get the most work done. So identify, understand yourself a little better. There are tools out there, simple stuff like Google Calendar. Put everything on your calendar, right? If it's just checking your emails, block 30 minutes every morning just to check your emails. If you need to power down, plan all of that as well, right? Maybe you want to take 30 minutes off for meditation. Put that on your calendar. It's all there. When you look back at your calendar, you'll know how much stuff you have actually got done. And again, plan your time off in advance. Set those expectations with the team. And that's it, guys. I think I've done 5. Oh, the last one, yes. Track your goals. Okay, track your goals. It comes back to the first one, which is the list. You got your list. You got to keep tracking. How am I doing against this list? And then it will come together. And like I said, it's a long journey. Okay, don't worry. Don't sweat the small stuff. Think of the marathon, and then you will be fine.
Very nice. Excellent advice. All right. I think that's time up. But thank you so much, Dhruv. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming and joining us. Do go and check out Dhruv's podcast on Tigerhall if you haven't already. And we'll see you all soon, I hope. All right.
Wonderful.
Bye for now.
Thank you for the time, and bye, everybody.
Thanks so much. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.